Super.
Yeah, all good to go.
So welcome back, everybody, and also a massive welcome to our guest this evening, to Tom, who is going to give us we've seen the presentation, it is superb, so we are really looking forward to this. So, Tom, thank you very much for joining us, and the floor is yours.
Brilliant. Thanks, Cameron, Naomi. Guys, great to see you all, and thanks for joining us. I hope you enjoyed Champagne Redefined so far. I think I got the raw end of the stick. I've got no champagne. I'm not in the producer tasting. I'm just here talking. Anyway, as the guy said, my name's Tom. I'm the Managing Director of Bermar. Bermar, some of you will probably know because some of you are customers of ours. We are the manufacturers, the inventors and manufacturers of the Le Verdeman Plus and Pod Bar Plus wine and champagne preservation systems. So we're a British business. We've been going for nearly 30 years, and we sell our products to on-trade operators in nearly 90 countries around the world. We've got about 50,000 users now, and all of those guys and girls are looking to use our products to sell a better quality of wine and champagne by the glass, and to improve guest experiences. So through working with a really diverse range of customers, from 50+% of Michelin star restaurants in the UK through to big international hotel groups, champagne houses, wine producers and the like, we get a lot of anecdotal feedback that comes into us in terms of things that work, things that don't, and how you can help to make more money and make more of an impact with your wine list. So what I'm going to look to do over the next 15-20 minutes is just to run you through a few ideas. I'm conscious that we've got a pretty sophisticated audience today, so some of this will be quite familiar to you already, but hopefully you'll leave with a few nuggets of information that you maybe didn't know. So with no further ado, we'll kick in. Two things I want to talk about. One is the evolution of the market, just a little bit of background in terms of who is today's consumer, who's walking through the doors of your restaurant, and what are some of their behaviours, and then some of the steps that we always recommend to our customers that they take to get the very most from their wine list and the very most from their wine and champagne glass. So evolution of the market, as I said, we've been in business for nearly 30 years now, and quite a lot's changed in 30 years. I wasn't here 30 years ago, but when the guys set the business up, they always anecdotally say the choice really was between a glass of white and a glass of red. And if it was somewhere posh, it was maybe dry white, off dry white, and a glass of red. And that was about your lot. We've now evolved to a point where Cameron and Naomi are, bringing exciting new grower producers into market. The buy the glass market has evolved enormously, and it's been a big old journey. To illustrate the point, take rosé. Rosé as a category, in 1997, it represented nearly 2%, just under 2%, all wine sales in the country. If the predictions are anything to go by, in 2021, rosé will be more than 15% of total wine sales in the year. So, that's a fairly straightforward example, but it gives you an idea of how much the category and how much the space has evolved in a relatively short period of time. Not that 20+ years is that short, but still. Rewind a bit, consumption was much higher. These are trends that we talk about all of the time, but we used to drink a lot more than we do now. Never mind the quality of what's being consumed for a moment. If we just look at the cases of wine that are sold in the UK market, the trend is downwards. There is a lower volume of overall wine being consumed in this country. Interestingly, if you have a look at value, and this is something that I'm sure you're very aware of, value has not declined. Value actually has grown. So it's slowly evolving into a nation of drinkers who drink a little bit less, drink a little bit better. And those are some key themes that we'll come back to in a moment. So talking about that consumer, let's have a quick look at some data. One point that's very relevant and I'm sure won't surprise anybody, that income plays an important role in overall consumption. So the more you earn, the more likely you are to drink alcohol. I'm not sure what we can draw from that, but as you get into higher earning brackets, we're looking at about 80% of consumers who drink alcohol. Moving on from there, we've talked about the fact that you're more likely to drink, but we are drinking less across many age groups. So if you have a look at this next slide, it's really only the 65 and overs who are doing their bit and continuing to drink more than they did years ago. But across all other categories, from the age of 16 to 64, we are drinking less than we did in 12, 15 years prior. That said, wine continues to be, I'm sure you guys see this in mainstream media all the time, but it continues to be the nation's favourite drink. There was some data revealed last year which showed that nearly north of 80% of adults say that they consumed a glass of wine at some point in the last year. That made it the outstanding drink within the category. Next place was beer and spirits, with about 70% of people saying they'd had a drink of beer or spirits in the previous year. It's a trend that filtered through into lockdown 1, 2, and 3, and online wine sales boomed. I think as a nation we pretty much emptied Majestic and most associated online wine retailers. More than half of consumers bought wine online at some point in the last 12 months. That's twice as many as bought gin or any associated spirits online. So, wine online and wine sales in the UK, big business. Last anecdotal point on that is that in the champagne category, which is what we're talking about this week, for the first time in retail, the average bottle of champagne broke the £25 price barrier. So while we're drinking less overall, wine continues to be big business, and actually the price per bottle and the price of wine is on a good journey as we head into this world now where we are drinking less but drinking better. So we're talking about consumers today who are probably more health conscious, more aware of what they're drinking, but who want to have experiences and they want to try these and they want to premiumize in terms of their experience every time they have a glass of wine. So with some of that information in our pocket, I want to now spend a little bit more time just jumping into how can we take what we know about those consumers and turn that into some simple, actionable steps, most of which for you guys will be pretty familiar already, but steps that you can take and that your teams can take to evolve wine sales and to drive wine by the glass as an overall category in your business. We look at 5 key areas whenever we run this presentation. We look at recommendations, serving formats, promotion, consumer experience, and obviously price. I'm not going to go through all of those with you today, but I've just picked a couple out to spend a bit of time on. So first of all is the power of recommendations. Now I'm conscious that I'm talking to an audience in a room of sommelier, and that recommendations and your knowledge, know-how, experience and expertise is something that you bring to the party all day, every day. But it's about taking that recommendation engine and that power of recommendation and driving it throughout your team and throughout your business. Because the majority of consumers still aren't that confident with wine. They're not that confident picking and choosing wines, and they will look to trusted teams, especially in some of the fine dining restaurants that I know we've got with us today. They'll be looking to be guided by you guys. So making sure that your team, when you're on hand to have these conversations, implement it straightforward. We always talk when we're doing training with people about making sure you've got a team of kind of wine ninjas. And what I mean by that is that the guys and girls in your front of house team don't need to be sommeliers. They don't all need the level of knowledge that you do, but they do need to have like small, well-practiced little nuggets of information and things that they can share with customers so that they can help shape the conversation and shape the customer journey towards new and interesting wines on the list. Simple ways that you can action this in your business might be just highlighting a wine of the month. It might be making sure that every member of staff has got a favourite wine. It might be, and in line with Champagne Redefined and some of the great producers that Cameron and Naomi have had with you guys already this week. It might be highlighting a flagship producer for a month and encouraging guests to jump in and try something new. So those are just a few of the simple steps that you can take. If we jump on from there, with champagne particularly, I don't think we're going to find this too hard over the next 3, 6, maybe even 12 months. But a lot of the work that we do with our customers is about getting champagne away from being a special occasion drink and about getting people comfortable and confident knowing that they can order a glass of champagne with any meal at any time in any setting, and that it's an experience that they can turn to, which quickly elevates their overall dining and their overall kind of occasion. But it doesn't have to be a birthday. It doesn't have to be a Christmas or whatever it might be. That said, we ran a kind of poll a couple of years ago talking about the power of champagne by the glass. And when we were interviewing people, we asked how many times in a year would you look at ordering a bottle of champagne in a restaurant, and the average answer came back at about 2 and a bit. we asked the same question: how many times in a year would you look at ordering a glass of champagne? And the average answer came back at just over 22. So, democratizing champagne actually by the glass is a great way of doing it, and it's a great way of introducing some of these grower brands and new producers. And there's a point there about do you recommend champagne, and making sure your team are recommending champagnes when they're taking orders. Moving on, serving formats. I'm conscious that, again, pretty sophisticated audience, and that you guys will have a good handle in terms of how you're promoting drinks and how you're showcasing your wines and your champagnes in front of guests. But a few ideas. One that I just wanted to highlight was around flights. Flights of wine. I've been lucky to have a couple of amazing experiences with flights of wines, and there's a memorable occasion a couple of years ago. I was in 67 Pall Mall, and we just handed it over to the team there and let them mess around with flights of wines. And we were trying to guess regions, guess producers, getting it wrong all the time, but a pretty memorable and a pretty special way to reintroduce to some new wines. Karen and I are talking to you about these new producers, about these growers. Consumers might not be confident on the journey from Brut to Rosé to Blanc de Blanc to Blanc de Noir to vintage. How does that change the expression? How does it change the wine? What better way to go on that journey than doing a discovery flight or a flight of champagnes? Similarly, pairing, and I recognise I'm preaching to the converted, but having the confidence to pair champagnes with food in all things is really powerful. There's a story I always remember from Claridge's, and in Claridge's they had a flight, and I think they still do actually, a flight of Dom Perignon by the glass. So they were doing Dom Perignon P2 and P3, so the second and third Plenitude of Perignon, some of the rarest, most exclusive wines in the whole Dom Perignon portfolio, that they were pairing with dishes from, it was actually Simon Rogan and Ferrer at the time, and now I think the guys at Davies and Brooke, and really creating a pretty unique experience for people who were sat in either of the Claridge's bars to do something once in a lifetime. From memory, I think it was about 200, 250 pounds for the flight, so pretty premium experience, but where else are you going to get to try 3 different vintages, 3 different issues of Dom Perignon in an environment like Claridge's? So flights, I think, is a really exciting way. I've talked already about the power of by the glass. Of course, I'm going to talk about the power of by the glass. It's my business. But the power of by the glass, by the glass and the ability to have the champagne open and to be pouring champagne by the glass, particularly when you're moving your guests towards these grower type champagnes and towards new producers and new styles with which might not be familiar. The ability, and forgive me because I don't have any grower champagnes here, but the ability to take a bottle to the table, to tell a little bit of the story of the wine to the guests, to then open it up, pour a taste, and if the customer's happy with it, to pour them a glass. That's a great way to bring a champagne experience to life. It's also a great gateway, as I say in my notes there, to driving overall bottle sales. If you're trying to introduce somebody to Blanc de Noir for the first time, or to introduce them to the wines of Salmon for the first time, they're probably going to want to try a glass before they dive in and try a bottle. So moving on from that, I just want to talk about promotion and promotion of wines and promotion of champagnes as a part of your overall promotion strategy. And it seems inevitable that we'd end up talking about social media, but it is probably your most powerful asset when it comes to really highlighting what you're up to. Now, the social media landscape is a busy one, and it's a consuming space. And so we really look to try and break it down into a few key players and to focus our attention in on where we can make the biggest impact. So jumping into each of those, Facebook, okay, it's kind of been left behind in the wine world a little bit in recent years, but there's some important statistics there, 3 billion monthly users. The one at the bottom is the one I draw your attention to. Nearly 50% of people use Facebook as a search engine to find restaurants. I never really thought of Facebook like that myself before, but it's obviously a powerful tool for people that they use to search out new restaurants, places to eat, and it tells us that we should be using our social media to drive engagement with guests. Twitter, it's the favourite of the wine community now, pretty much. I think I see some pretty ferocious debates around wine on Twitter most days. At the bottom there, again, is probably the key takeaway for you from Twitter. Compared to all other industries, Twitter users have the highest engagement restaurants. So if you're looking to engage with your guests, to start dialogue, conversation, take them on the journey in terms of what you're up to with wine in your business, Twitter's a great place to do that. And then, of course, Instagram. And Instagram, obviously, probably has the biggest impact across all social channels at the moment. It is the #1 social media platform for engagement. So if you're looking for comments, likes, shares, all of that sort of stuff, then Instagram is the place to do it. And that's going to be able to drive ultimate engagement with your guests. So, here's just a few ideas in terms of how you can use social media, because we know from that data that consumers are using social media to decide where they have their next meal out. So, it might be you guys, the sommelier community, you've huge amounts of knowledge. You might want to distill that down into quick 60-second guides, introductions to new wines, talking about regional styles, vintages, grape varieties, whatever it might be, just giving a little bit of promotional type content for some of your producers. Food and wine pairings, it's a great way to showcase the talents of your kitchen team as well as your wine team, and to bring it together in a pretty easy, good looking piece of content. And also, I think, coming back to what this week's all about, and Champagne Redefined, is highlighting some of the stories of the producers. I know from my time working in wine and from my time working with restaurateurs and with brands, the power of getting consumers on board with the story of the producer. They don't need to understand the absolute ins and outs and intricacies of the wine necessarily, but if they understand that this is 5-6 generations of winemaking, that for the first time being brought to the UK market and available by the glass, that's a pretty powerful message to share. And it's one that you can do very succinctly using your social channels. So we talked about the substance. It comes with it naturally that you need the style. And when I talk about style, it's about making sure the quality of content, and again, looking at some of the names that we've got with us this afternoon, I didn't see that being too much of a challenge. But really simple, straightforward, actionable ideas. A food and wine pairing is a Sunday roast with a great glass of red wine there. There's a beautiful looking dining room. Looks like somewhere I'd far rather be having dinner tonight than my kitchen for the 300th night in a row. And maybe even brand partnerships. Okay, this is a grower, it's Ayala, but it's an Ayala afternoon tea sat outside. That's the sort of thing that, brings a little bit of enlightenment and a bit of excitement amongst your community. Why is it important? Here's a statistic for you. 76% of consumers have ordered a cocktail that they saw somewhere on social media. So, it just shows the power of social in terms of driving consumer behavior and driving them towards products or even wines or producers in your offer. The other side of it, and again, this is, I know you know it already, but today's consumers share great experiences. There's a statistic down there that kind of makes my toes curl a little bit, which is that nearly 70% of millennials take pictures of their food before they eat it. I'm sure you guys have seen it in all of your restaurants. It's the same thing with wine. And if we're talking about the great stories behind producers, and we're lucky enough to be able to take the bottle to the table and to have the conversation with the customer, let them take a picture of the wine, let them get involved in the story of the wine, because these are the sorts of things that are gonna drive them towards recommending to their friends and driving repeat business into your venue. Last point I want to talk about is consumer experience. So when I say consumer experience, I mean bringing all of this together, all of this know-how that you have, all of this power that you've got with great producers, by the glass programs, and making it pop for your guests. So within champagne, there's all manner of ways that you can bring champagne to life. A few of my favorites are, if you've got a brut champagne that you're pouring by the glass as your kind of house pour, depending on the format of your restaurant, if you've got a bar area where people are having drink before they go through and dine, pour it from Magnum. It's a really simple step, but the theatre, the excitement that it brings, I just think it brings the whole thing to life. If you want to drive more champagne by the glass sales, pouring champagne Magnum at a bar is a pretty straightforward way of doing it, because the minute that people see it being drunk, they're like, ooh, I want a glass of that. Similarly, a lot of restaurants that we work with use things like champagne trolleys. Bob Ricard are famous for their, press for champagne buttons. But there's lots of ways of activating champagne in your business and really making it a standout part of the overall experience. Champagne cocktails are always used to be a straightforward way of using up flat champagne. They are now more popular probably than they ever have been before. So maybe look at introducing something like that. But also, it might be that it's a separate piece around events. And we talked about this education piece, and you guys as the sommelier community have this knowledge. Why not put together private wine dinners, private wine events where you can invite great customers to come along and have an amazing experience, where they can get to grips with the producer, they can get to grips with different wine styles, they can experiment and try wines that maybe when they come in for dinner with friends or family, they just wouldn't have the confidence to order by the bottle. Reason all of this is important, bottom right again, 65% of adults say they would rather spend their money on an experience than a possession. And that's this migration towards this new style of consumer who is more health conscious, and they do drink less, but they drink better, and they are more interested in experiences. So the more that you're doing to bring your wine list and to bring your wine and champagne offer to life, the more that you're going to benefit. Linked to that is, and this is a point that we make so often, we do a lot of work as a business with the big kind of national groups. So we do a lot with kind of M&B and Green King and Fuller's and people like that. And in a traditional kind of pub bar format, you walk up to the bar in the good old days. You walk up to the bar, the front bar's got all the beer fonts. The back bar increasingly has got huge selections of gins and spirits and different bits and pieces on it. If you want a glass of wine or a champagne, you're probably scratching around for a wine list, then digging through to find the by the glass page so that you can have a quick read through and try and find something that you like. If wine's an important part of your overall business, make it sing, put it on show. That's why we launched Bar a few years ago. It's a simple way for customers to bring wine to life and make it a focal point on the back bar. Use wine fridges, use display fridges, let your guests know that wine's an integral part of your experience when they're coming into your restaurant. And quite fitting for Champagne Redefined and the style of producer that Cameron and Naomi are talking to you guys about and that you're enjoying the wines of this week is giving consumers something different to try. Those champagneaholics have probably sat at home for the last year and got pretty familiar with the big brands and the Grand Marque Maison. The idea of going out and trying a new producer, something that's never been seen really in the UK market before, that's quite exciting. 82% of consumers are up for trying something new or different when they get out and about. I wouldn't mind betting that number will be even higher when people are allowed out for the first time properly in about a year, in a month or so's time. Last point is really just picking up again on Champagne Redefined and the theme of this week. And I'm conscious that you guys have got another session with a producer after me, but it's around that story behind the wine, the story behind the producer, activating your team, giving your team the confidence to be able to talk a little bit about the wines that are on the list, not all of them, but just to be able to pick out their favorites and to really bring it to life. These are the things that we know, that we've seen time and time again over the years, that really make a difference to consumers. And they're what turn wine programs into really profitable, really exciting, crucial parts of overall F&B business. So in summary, obviously you're the sommelier community, so recommendations, referrals are in your DNA, in your blood, but empowering your team to recommend and empowering your team to be confident talking about wines. Anyone who's just a customer in your business should be confident talking about the flagship wines that you've got on your list, and certainly your by the glass offer. Try developing serving formats. So whether it's flights, tastes, I know that you had a session yesterday with the guys at Chef and Sommelier, different stemware, different serve sizes, all of those sorts of things. They go a long way to driving engagement with consumer and to giving them the opportunity to shop around and maybe to spend a little bit more money, but to be confident that they know that they're getting something that they're going to love when they do it. Promote your wine list through social media. Pretty straightforward, but I sometimes think that wine in the overall mix of a beautiful restaurant or of a great fine dining venue gets left behind a little bit of the food, but actually you just have to look at how engaged the wine community are on Twitter and Instagram particularly to know that if you've got awesome new producers coming through and exciting things that you're doing with your wine program, social media is a place to share that. And then lastly is that consumer experience. And we talked about the theatre of magnums and the theatre of champagne trolleys and whatever it might be, but also is the educational piece, and is distilling down your know-how and your expertise into bite-sized chunks that your guests can grab hold of, and they can kind of feel empowered, so that when they leave the restaurant, they've had an amazing time, they've drunk great champagne by the glass, but they've also gone home with something that they didn't know before. They know the two great varieties that go into a Blanc de Noir. They know the difference between a Blanc de Blanc and a Blanc de Noir. They suddenly feel a little bit more confident about, what's Grower Champagne all about, and why would I want to drink it? That's really bringing to life some of our know-how, some hopefully of what we get fed back time and time again by our customers. I hope it was useful, and I'm obviously here now to answer any questions that you guys have. I'd be happy to have a chat with you about anything and everything to do with wine and champagne buyers.
Hello, Tom. Thank you for that. I think you can see us again now. Are we back on? We're back. Tom, that was tremendous. As I said before, when we introduced, we've seen the presentations, stats, and some of the things you've spoken about are really obviously relevant to not only what we've been talking about this week, but some of the people in the guest room as well. So
we can see lots of emojis coming through. I think people really enjoyed that, so thank you.
There's lots in there. Super. So we've got a couple of comments and questions. So we have got, first question here is from Chris Goodale. So hi, Chris, and he is asking for, have you any specific suggestions for restaurants outside of fine dining who have a fine wine list? So something that will be fairly low cost or low risk to that type of establishment.
Sure, and I'm guessing, Chris, that this is probably, you've got a standard wine list, but then there's a separate fine wine offer where people can jump in and grab a menu of some more interesting, exciting bits and pieces that you do. One of my favourite ways, and it's a bit brassy, but it's not necessarily the most low risk. And it's one of our customers, actually. He's in the States, he's in New York. He's got a fine wine list, and he's of an argument that if anyone is prepared to order one glass of any of those wines, he'll open it up, pour them a glass, and the rest of the bottle on a special. And he has a chalkboard behind his bar of the specials, and he just puts it on the special. He's got one of our systems, so he can preserve it for 2-3 weeks once he's opened it, and he just sells it through as a special until it's gone. Now, it's not necessarily low risk because it involves having confidence to open up some pretty fine wine by the glass and knowing that you've got a customer demographic who are going to buy it. I'm desperately avoiding pitching our products because that's not what I'm here to do. But you need to consider preservation at this stage. And I won't dive into why you buy our products, but if you've got wine and champagne preservation in your business, Chris, you can confidently start pushing the price point forward and pushing towards selling a premium range of wines without worrying that you're going to end up pouring great wine or great champagne down the sink because it's flat, it's out of condition, or even worse, serving it and worrying about whether actually it's still in the right condition and kind of how the winemaker wanted it to be.
I think that's a really good point about mentioning the preservation. So me and Cameron,
we're going to do your plug for you.
Yeah, so we know a lot about what you do, but I think it'd be good for our guests if you could tell a little bit about the preservation side.
Because obviously with Chris there, he could go and open our top of the range Folie de Cremant from Philippe Clavier, Magnum, 450 bottles, only available in the
and pour it in front of all the guests, so everybody wants a glass of it as well.
However, if only one guest likes it, how long can that be preserved for in your systems?
Sure. So I'll just show you really quickly how the champagne. I've got Veuve Clicquot. Couldn't champagne really fast. But if you've got your bottle of champagne and you open it up and pour a glass, now I'm preaching to the converted in you guys. Two things begin to happen. One is you've cut the apple in half, so to speak, in terms of oxidation, and the oxidation starts to tick. And that wine will change irreversibly. You can't reverse oxidation, you can just halt it. And secondly, obviously, the CO2 that's naturally occurring in the wine is going to pretty quickly start disappearing out. I always say to people, they would act much quicker if they could see CO2 leaving the bottle and the speed at which it leaves the bottle. But the fact you can't see it means people don't take it seriously. With our system, you can open it up, pour your glass, you pop a stopper in the top of the bottle and a clip around the neck. You come to the champagne side, you simply push it up, and somewhere between 1 and 5 seconds, depending on how much wine's left in the bottle, you've perfectly resealed it. That wine will now stay in great condition for up to 3 weeks. And what we've done is introduced a measure of CO2 gas back in. That CO2 acts in 2 ways. It prevents the wine from oxidizing further, and it also locks the natural fizz in place. And it means that next time you want to serve a glass, you kind of like, it's like pouring it for the first time. So that is one of the most powerful ways to sell fine wine by the glass. There you go. I said I wasn't going to do a product pitch, and I did a product pitch. Sorry, but that's who we are and what we do. Our system also works with still wines. So if you're, what have I got here? I've got Mirlas, which is a Rubicon, which is a great Bordeaux blend wine from South Africa. So you want to open it up, pour a glass. You can pop a stopper in the top, and you push the bottle up to the system. Which again, it goes orange while it's working, green when it's done. So it's pretty straightforward for all of your team to use. And we just created a really precise vacuum inside the open bottle, and that will keep the wine fresh again for up to 3 weeks. So that's us, that's how the systems work, and that's how they facilitate, hopefully, a kind of broad fine wine by the glass offer.
No, super. I think that's super beneficial for everybody to see. I know some people in here are obviously your clients as well. So we've got Alice saying hello.
For us by giving us a referral. Thank you.
Yes, Francesco is bigging you up there, so I can assure that works amazingly. One thing that stands out to me, and I think is when you introduce this to us as consumers, and obviously it made us think differently around how wine is presented in a restaurant, especially in a bar situation, was your display cases and obviously the fridges behind you as well that are built into the system. Is that you see all these wonderful spirits and gins, which are obviously very popular at the moment, on the back shelf of the bar, and regularly as a consumer you would see something that really catches your eye and go, well, I'll try that. What's that bottle there? Or that looks really interesting. But also when they are making a cocktail or pouring that, again, the bottle is very enticing. So you see somebody else having a try and you think, I'll have a go as well. So I think with the display cases that obviously you guys do, that can make a massive impact on consumers trying new wines that maybe they've never seen before. So they'll see a bottle of Dom Perignon maybe in there, or a yellow label Veuve Clicquot that everybody recognises. But for example, from our point of view, they might see a different label or something that stands out and think, oh, what's that bottle in there? So
unfortunately, we are only human, and as much as we know about the wine, we do sometimes tend to shop with our eyes.
Well, we do, don't we?
Definitely, yeah.
I think if you've got engaged and empowered teams, which we were just talking about, and they're able to say, guess, look, you always order a glass of champagne when you come in here. We've just listed this awesome new grower champagne. It's only been on the list for a week. Listen, you're one of our regulars and we love you. Have a little try. Try a taste, see what you think. Oh yeah, it's great, isn't it? Would you like to order a glass? It's a risk-free way of driving customers towards new wines and driving customers towards more premium stuff in the list.
Definitely, it gives so much flexibility and different options, doesn't it, to try new things. And it's obviously, it works perfectly with what we're trying to do, and obviously perfectly with prestige bottles and selling house champagne by the glass as well. And we had a conversation this morning on one of our tasting sessions who was saying that he changes his house champagne every 6 months, and the reason he can do that is because he has got a preservation system in place that allows him to try something for 6 months, and if it doesn't work, that's fine because he's not lost a lot of money on it. But also, if it does work, he can keep those on his list and keep that going forward. So.
And I think people sometimes, even at the most senior level, like sometimes we can all just be guilty of underestimating consumers, and particularly for a year in lockdown. If you see a glass of something really special at £20-25, sure, normally you might just swerve straight by it, but actually after a year sat at home, like you're more likely to sell it than you ever have been before. To push it,
and people will be open to trying new things because they've been sat at home, they've been drinking the same thing, they want to get out, they want to try something new.
But they can't get anything else, really. So there's a couple more comments come through. So we've got another question here. This is from Fran. So straight to the point, as always, Fran. Love it. Love you. You're great. Can we please ask the price of your preservation systems, please, Tom?
And actually, I just saw a related comment. Is there a D6 discount?
Oh yes, that's on the chat.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I'll tackle both of them together. Price-wise, in a champagne-only configuration, our products start from about £1,500. The one that's behind me has got fridges. They're available in different formats. If you go to bermar.co.uk, you can see them. In terms of the D6 collaboration, yeah, absolutely. We'll look after anyone who comes through on the back of Champagne Redefined and share a bit of love with you guys from a pricing view.
Definitely, we've been working obviously closely with the guys at Bermar to start to build some partnerships with them, and obviously purchasing some of our wines and how we can work together to collaborate, something that's beneficial for everybody. So yes, Chris, to answer your question, we will certainly be working together to offer you some new offers. So I think another question maybe. Oh no, it's just a hashtag awesome from Fran. Love it. Super stuff. So any more questions from the audience before we close this session and say a massive thanks to Tom? I think we got a couple of hellos. A few people just joined us. So Nacho says, I think this preservation system is worth every penny. So
Hawksmoor, isn't it? Thanks, Nacho.
Nacho from Hawksmoor. There you go. So giving you the good. A raised hand. This is interesting. Here we go. Oh, I think it's Alice waiting for her next session. So what we will do, in fact, I could just see people. Yeah. So what we will do then, we will, as we said with the guys at Chef and Sommelier yesterday, and I think what was interesting, another point that I've just got very quickly is that Chris mentioned yesterday that with one of their glasses, the macaron glass, he said it was at the Michelin star dinner. I think he said it was in Stockholm or Copenhagen. I'm not sure, but he said it was the first time at that dinner somebody has taken a picture of the glassware as well as just the meal. And talking obviously some of the stats that you raised in terms of people taking photos and Instagramming and seeing a cocktail that somebody's tried on Instagram and giving that a go when they go into a restaurant. I think the ability to see the bottles behind the bar, see it being, I think the being poured by Magnum is superb. You see that, you take a photo, don't you? It's what you do. So all those little things are just brilliant, really. So I can envision it now. I can see one of our wines being poured by Magnum, being back preserved by Bermar, and then served in a Chef and Sommelier glass, and we all go home very, very happy. So that's what it's all about. So no, thank you, Tom, for joining us. Also a massive thanks to Luke, your marketing manager, who is behind the scenes, probably clicking away and making sure everything works. We'll give him a big thanks as well. And on behalf of all our guests, we say a massive thank you for sharing your insight and your knowledge.
Yeah, for your time, guys. I'm conscious you're here to try great champagnes, and we're a kind of side note, but hopefully.
No, not at all. Not at all. You're the star of the show. That was brilliant, honestly. Thank you so much.
Nice one. All right, guys, enjoy the tasting.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, thanks so much. Bye.
So, thank you, guys. I hope you really enjoyed that. And we will be back on stage very shortly. What time are we on? Oh, perfect timing. So, 1:45. So, what, 10-15 minutes before we welcome Alice onto the stage. I think Alice is now backstage wondering why she's not live on the video yet. Yeah, but we'll welcome Alice on shortly. If you have got any Voyage Jumel that we sent you, maybe you've not tasted it yet, feel free to maybe have a glass. We'll let you off. Yeah. And let it breathe for a couple of days before we maybe do the tasting with you. We've got some Cuvée 555 that we're going to taste with her. And we've got lots of questions to ask Alice as well. And if you've got questions as well, you can put them straight into the questions box and we can ask them as and when they come up. Indeed. Or we can ask Alice and do them all at the end. So I know Wayne's excited. Wayne just put yes. Wayne was super excited when he saw that we imported Voyage Jumel after he had lots of Voyage Jumel in America when he lived over there. So we know Wayne loves those. I think Wayne will definitely have a bottle of 555. He might have a bottle if he's not drank them all that we sent him. Yes. So if you want to get into the social lives, we're going to jump on the networking. So it'd be great to see some of you in the speed networking. Some new faces indeed. And if not, join the table. Go and get yourself a glass, and we will be back with you at 6 p.m. ready to meet Alice and learn more about Champagne and Voyage Jumel. See you all soon. See you soon.